Hello, everyone. This is Lindsay Birchvin with the Quilters Planner. We are doing our July ambassador chat with Jemima Flendt. And am I saying that right? I have to always
You
ask.
are, yeah, well
Okay,
done.
great.
It's tricky, so good
Yeah,
work.
I'm so excited to be chatting with you today about your block empire that's in our planner. Sampler quilt, a quilter's compass, which you can see behind me. And I'm actually covering your block right here. We'll talk about your block. We're going to talk about QuiltCon and pattern writing and the planner and all sorts of fun things. So I'm
Thanks for having
excited.
me, Lindsay.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
look to it.
And okay, so to start off, will you just share with us how you got into this? I've read a little bit about you on your website more than kind of what we provided our readers in the planner. But you started young, but then you were a home ec teacher as well. I'm so interested to hear more about how this influences your work today.
Yes, no, craft has kind of always been part of my life. I started out when I was very young. My nana taught me how to crochet, and it's funny how that's kind of come full circle in itself. But I was always making and crafting, and I used to ask my mum to take me to, holiday craft lessons. I did the Fimo flowers on top of the little baskets, and I was always, my mum always, she made all our clothes as kids. So there was always a sewing machine going. There was always fabric. So I was very much, yeah, influenced by my nana and by my mum, in terms of always just adopting that from such a young and loving it. So I
So,
then went into
sorry,
teaching.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to say how lucky and what a great heritage coming from that of having that obviously important to them and passing that to you and that love for making and for crafts. So that's so
Yeah.
wonderful.
Well, very much, in terms of some of the patterns that I've had, they've been influenced by those, two very, important women to me. But also too, they encouraged, I used to sell things that I made, like there were aunties who were buying fabric covered tissue boxes that were little houses, if you remember that time where we used to spray the tissue box. And so I was always selling craft, and little did I realize how that would come to be my work and my biggest passion, so many years later. But I was trained as originally a primary school teacher, so I did that for a little while. And then I actually decided to teach home economics. So I had to go back to uni and pick up some extra units after I'd been a teacher already. And through high school teaching, I was mainly teaching year 11s and 12s
Mhm.
hospitality. So working
Yeah.
with students who wanted to become chefs and work in the hospitality industry. And
Cool.
one day I got thrown the Jemima, you're going to have to teach the year 9 textiles class. And that was kind of like I begged every teacher in the department to swap that class, because any or any teacher that is not the favorite class to teach year 9 textiles.
Yeah.
And but it literally was how I got back into sewing. I had always sewn, I had always quilted before I had kids. Like I was taking quilt lessons myself when I was 18, and I was making quilts for my friends and all of that. And when I had my little girls, um, I didn't touch a machine, and didn't want to sort of go anywhere near anything like that. I didn't have time or the energy. And then through sort of being forced to get back into the classroom and teach textiles, it really reignited my love for quilting. And it kind of I was doing, teaching, and I loved high school teaching. It was really, I loved the kids. I loved the subjects that I taught, and I loved cooking with the kids. So that was always, yeah, really, really fun. And on the side, I was starting to write patterns, and I was going to markets and selling things that I was making, like aprons and little hair clip hangers and all that. And that kind of just evolved into me eventually sort of coming to that point where it was like, right, either I go full time back into teaching or full time into sort of turning this into a business. And that was kind
Yeah.
of the turning point.
Isn't that a scary point? I've been in that point myself where I have my normal, like consistent job, or I have this thing that I've been growing very slowly, but it's awesome. And then trying to make that decision, it can be really hard. What and and just kind of personally, I would love to hear how did you end up making that call to do that?
Yeah, it wasn't easy because one, I was very sort of passionate about teaching and I love doing that. I also kind of got to the point where I sort of realized it was either now or never. And I kind of knew that, and it was a big hit for my family in terms of, financially as well.
Mhm.
So that decision weighed very heavily on me. And I just had this inner feeling that, craft and sewing and quilting was just something that I just had always been so inherently, doing, and it had so it was really just a case of, right, let's try it. And the thing was, teaching is always one of those occupations that I knew that I could go back to if I needed to. It was kind of the best way to sort of try to see if I could get the business up and going, whilst knowing at least I had the security of, going back and finding another job and teaching. And so I think it was like, right, after the discussions at home and that, it was kind
Mhm.
of bite the bullet, let's do it.
Right.
And yeah, but of course, things like that just never happen sort of as quickly as you want
As
to,
you
and it takes time. And
Yeah, yeah, to get to the point and to when you feel comfortable with it.
yeah.
Um, tell me about how you felt when you realized you could combine the two. Because obviously you're teaching now, you're
Hmm.
still pattern writing and designing, but I love that you have this background in teaching in this industry essentially.
Yeah.
Um, and you're doing it again. Was that like the best realization?
What it was is, when I first started out in pattern writing, I found it very difficult to find my place. I could see, this person was, very good at a particular style of pattern, or this person could produce, amazing, foundation paper piecing, works of art. And I think it came from doubt, in that I saw everyone had this ability to do great things in the industry. And I was really questioning, like, but I don't see that. I don't design like that. That isn't my area of expertise. And it was really I realized one day that my area of expertise and what I had mostly to offer was actually my teaching. And because of how much I love teaching, and now that's, one of the biggest areas that, within this business, that I actually do and I love, and nothing lights me more than going and working and teaching at a retreat or a convention or any of that, and being in the classroom and actually sharing what I know with everyone, and hearing their stories and how they got started. And so it was really, yeah, really came from not knowing where I fit in, to realizing that my superpower in quilting was actually teaching. It wasn't a design aesthetic. It wasn't a particular technique I could teach that no one knew, or I didn't have some super thing that no one had ever sort of seen before. It was me being in the classroom, showing
Yeah.
people and sharing and getting people into quilting.
Yeah. That's so wonderful. I love that realization brought it all together in full
Mhm.
circle for you. But I will say, I do feel like your aesthetic is uniquely you as well.
Mhm.
And maybe that's something that you felt has just developed over time. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I haven't followed you the full 10 years, but I do know that seeing your work in the planner past couple years and your current
Mhm.
offerings, that I love, this both scrappy and modern kind of confluence of designs that you create. Um, there's a place for that for sure. At least
Yeah.
I'm attracted to that type of work, and I know that others must be too. And I love to see you sharing not only your designs, but that you have this ability to really bring new people into the industry and into quilting through your teaching, which is awesome. Because not every pattern writer can do that. So
Well, yeah, and that's sort of what I learned, not everyone who, likes, writing patterns or, actually likes being in the classroom. And for me, being in the classroom is something that, I love just as much as the pattern writing. And that it has taken time to refine, I think, what it is that I love most. And I think too, initially there's all that, like, oh, you should be doing this, or, oh, I'd love to see this. And I think what it is you kind of have to at some point not it's not that you're not listening to what everyone's telling you, it's that you have to go with what your gut says. And it's
Right.
like, right, if that doesn't, I don't want to do something necessarily because someone suggested that that would be a good idea for you to make a pattern for. It's like, right,
Right.
well, making now decisions based on, what I love to create and what I love to design, and how can I grow people's skills as well. So very much, how I write patterns and books, and that is about, well, how can I teach people through my writing, and how can I develop their skills? How can they learn more? So that's kind of, yeah, evolved over time.
Yeah. Awesome. So your next big teaching gig is
Mhm.
QuiltCon. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about, I guess, deciding what to teach, what you are teaching, and what
Mhm.
people can kind of look forward to.
Yeah, oh, I am so excited because it has been on my bucket list for a long time now to be able to teach at QuiltCon. So I cannot wait. I'm very excited, and I um, went through sort of what it was that I wanted to teach, so that people sort of have those skills that they can take away, and the workshop in themselves. So I'm teaching a 1 day workshop where people will come along and learn about equilateral triangles, which is one of my big areas, and one of the things that I love, really teaching and showing people that design aesthetic. So we're doing that, as well as some foundation paper piecing. And that's really designed for beginners, people who are wanting to start, people who have, like, foundation paper piecing is one of those things that I think some people have tried. Well, a lot of people try at home, and it's frustrating. It's, like, it just doesn't make sense, and everything's
Yeah.
reversed. We just naturally, takes a little bit longer for that light bulb to go off. And so I'm really excited. I've designed a new pattern actually for that class. So I'm in the process of making some more samples for that. But that one's going to be, yeah, a really sort of a small, it's a 3-hour workshop, that one. And I'm
Great.
teaching that a couple of times. So yeah, but
Awesome.
a good way to get into it and learn some skills, and all the tips and tricks that you need, so that you can take those away and then, really dive into some more, patterns within that foundation paper piecing.
Awesome. That's so great. And I love that you're tackling both equilateral triangles and FPP, because to me both of them, they're not something that are easy to wrap your mind around. After having written a pattern with equilateral triangles before, I I don't envy that process. Like, it's kind of a tricky. It's not your normal traditional piecing. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
very
it. There's a
exciting.
few other things, that you've got to take into account. And but once you've got those under your belt, it really does open up a big array of designs that you can get your teeth into. So yeah,
Yeah. Great. And
yeah,
remind
I
us
cannot
when
wait.
class signups start for QuiltCon.
July 31st, class
Okay.
sign-ups start, and the schedule's up on their website. So yeah, hopefully, I'm so excited to be able to
Yeah.
meet people as well, because obviously a big part of, what I do is connecting with people, through social media and all that as well. And I can't wait, obviously, to be just in that classroom, but also to actually get to spend a little while since I've been to the US, at a quilt show and that sort of thing. So it'll
Yeah.
just be so good to, like, yeah, that's the fun part of getting to do, all the back end and the boring stuff that, takes hours. It's actually getting in there and meeting people, and meeting those people that you've been chatting to, or people who are interested in what you do. So can't wait to say hello. And
Yeah.
yes,
And I'm excited we'll get to meet in person. And my mind is blanking, but it's in
yeah,
Phoenix again, right?
yes, yep.
Yes. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah. So I went to QuiltCon when it was in Phoenix the last time.
Mhm,
And beautiful venue, lots
mhm.
of great weather there in February. And yeah, I had a lot of fun. I tagged made my husband tag along, and he's,
Mm.
he thought he knew what I did and like the industry, and he walks away from it after the first day. He's like, I had no idea. I had
Yeah.
no idea like how
Yeah.
big and how talented um this this thing is, and he
Yeah.
just kind of wandered uh the show just in awe, just like I was, the first time I went to QuiltCon. And it's such a magical thing going to a show of any style and just admiring all of the work that
Oh,
as a quilter, goes into
yeah.
it.
It's just,
So,
yeah, it's just mind blowing, and it's going to be very interesting for me because I've only ever been to trade events like
oh,
in the US, and like spring markets, and
yeah, yeah.
that used to happen, in that sort of April period.
Hmm.
So I've only ever been more on that trade side. So actually being the retail side and actually getting to sort of see
Yeah.
front is going to be, yeah, really interesting, and I'm going to make sure I pack light because
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Cause like
I'm sure.
I've been to both fall market and spring markets and quilt cons, and yeah, they are a little bit different.
Mm.
I mean, you can get some things at markets, but not a ton. But like if you're ready to shop, like QuiltCon has a ever growing vendor
Mhm.
section, and yeah, it's definitely a different vibe. Plus, you're surrounded by modern quilting,
Yeah.
um, which is also, if you're
Well,
into
the
that, that's a
exhibitions
big
and all
thing.
that as well. I can't wait to see those like up close and personal. And
Yeah.
I see them every year on Instagram and all the social media, and and just I can't wait to sort of see that sort of thing in real life. And I think just the size and that will just blow me away, and it's going to be, yeah, quite overwhelming. But
Hmm.
yeah, I can't wait to get in the classroom. I'm just keeping focused on being in the classroom, and yeah.
Yeah. Will you have some free time in between teaching that you can go and
Yeah,
meander
yeah.
through the show?
I've
Good.
got some free time, which is really good because it's kind of the best of both worlds, being able to
Yeah,
teach and also having some time to do that. And yeah, there's some other things I'll be about at some vendors and that sort of thing as well. So yeah,
great.
there'll be
Cool.
other things to look at and see and do as well.
Awesome. Very, very exciting. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your quilt patterns. I
Mhm.
have to say that one of my favorite ones is Endgame, which we have a nice, beautiful photo of on a bed in the planner itself.
Yeah.
I love the 80s vibes that I'm getting getting from that as, an 80s child myself. But the big piecing is has a soft spot in my heart. But where do you feel um I don't know if you do you have a certain style that you find yourself gravitating more towards, because you have a big variety of things that you do, from scrappy and small piece, from FPP to applique, you do crochet. Talk to us about your exploration of these different styles, and, you know, could you pick a favorite, or are they all your favorite children?
Well, look, I definitely have a soft spot for equilateral triangles. I love how complex designs can kind of be broken down into very, into patterns that people really can sort of get into. I love that they have that modern element and that you can really make them your own through your choice of fabrics and colors. And you can make that quilt works beautifully for for a toddler, just as well as it works, great for for grandpa. So
Right.
it's a case of, I love that you can really make it for the audience that or for the person that you want to make it. So but I love how equilateral triangles sort of because that particular quilt is broken down into lots of smaller pieces.
Mhm,
So whilst it
mhm.
looks sort of big and that, it really sort of, once you get into it, I love that style of piecing because people are intimidated by it. So I love being able to break it down and show people that they can achieve that, and through just some simple techniques that it is something that they can create some designs with. So equilateral triangles is definitely one of my favorites to
Mhm,
design. I love piecing, like just machine piecing.
mhm.
I've done sort of a few designs where it's just really about sewing, and sometimes you need a quilt that
Yeah.
maybe you can sort of make at a quicker pace because you've got a deadline coming up for who it's going to, or But also too, I love taking sort of some of those maybe more traditional sort of style blocks and through different, modern fabrics or through, use of color. I love sort of adding in those elements where it can really sort of, take that, just as much as like the sampler behind you. I mean, it's so beautiful in those solid colors. But again, those designs that work well across no matter what style of fabric
Right.
that
Right.
you choose. So
Yeah, I was we were talking about this earlier, the Bexford quilt, traditional
mhm.
drunkard's path, right?
Yes.
Which we have templates in the planner for.
Yeah.
Traditional curve, but by changing the background, changing it to scrappy, alternating their placement, you have just
hmm
completely um different setup that you would have, I don't know, not normally thought about when you think about it in a traditional way.
Yeah.
And I love that like contemporary approach where just a little bit of tweaking and you could really
Yeah,
make it
I
your
mean,
own.
like, yeah, drunken's paths aren't new. There's no, there's nothing, that's rocket science about those. It's really, I
Yeah.
think, a lot of the time it comes down to your interpretation of how you love to showcase them, and just that ability to break the rules. You don't have to have them placed as a traditional sort of style that you may have seen, and you don't have to cut the blocks, to have the exact seam allowance that it may have traditionally been. Make it doesn't make the quilt any less beautiful or any less perfect or any of those sorts of things. What it does is it makes it a quilt where you've given it your own spin, or you've given it a different take, just to open up that possibility. And I mean, with that one that's in the book, I've
Yeah.
used a really beautiful dark
Yeah.
charcoal chambray, and
Yeah.
I love using fabrics that maybe we wouldn't traditionally, they're not necessarily all 100% quilting cottons that I use. I really love mixing up my backgrounds. Very much I use linens, I use linen cotton blends, I use a lot of chambray, and
Hmm.
I really love sort of looking at maybe what might be seen as more traditional dressmaking style fabrics brought into quilting to
Uh-huh.
really bring our quilting fabrics to life. So but
Yeah.
it's funny with that particular Bexford one. I actually did it with that dark charcoal chambray, and I actually put it aside because I was like, this is not working. I don't like it. And I actually set it aside. I even, because I had a deadline on that, and put it aside. I didn't even finish it because I was like, no, I'm going to go back to my Liberty and my linen. And so I made that one, and it's been interesting because by far most people ask me all the time about that chambray. Where did I get it? Where can I get it? And it's
And it
really just
was
a case, yeah. And I love it now and how it's come together. But I love the reception that it's received as well. That people sort of also then go, oh, I'd never thought to, use a chambray, or I never thought to use a linen, or I never thought to use, shirting or any, there's some, beautiful,
yeah.
dobby fabrics, and, you double your weaves, that have got different colors through them, and, so many different styles that you can really sort of give a lot of interest and texture and background,
Right.
just rather than a plain, solid color.
Yeah. And not that we don't also have places for that, right? But
Yeah,
just the idea that
absolutely.
there's no rules, right? Like that freedom of expression is what I so identify with in modern quilting and just creativity in general. That if you want to go just pull out your stash and you know make something work, you can still make something so beautiful.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
now, speaking of beautifulness, tell us how, I don't think I've ever asked you, how did you come up with your inspiration for your block and the name for your block? So
So
here it is
there's
in, I'm
yours.
sorry, here it is in the Quilter's Planner Solids in the cool, well, the kind of medium cool corner of the wheel, color wheel,
Yeah.
and your lovely scrappy version, which I love too.
Yeah, I made this out. This one's made with Starry, which I know people are absolutely loving at the moment, by Ruby Star, and also
Mm-hmm.
speckled as well as the background with that neon pink. I love using that neon pink, but that block came about. we had travel. We've never been to Europe, and last year we had the opportunity to travel to Europe, and we were just outside the Colosseum, and we were up on Palatine Hill, and absolutely just kind of looking and realizing sort of just how in almost like a speck you are in the whole, like it's really humbling to stand up there in such a place that has such historic like significance, and just kind of realizing how, you know, it's very it's very, I don't know what the right words are, but it's just that whole,
Yeah.
it gives you a very different perspective, you know, on life, and it really sort of brings you back down to, you know, that whole, well, we're only here for such a, you know, a little time, and look at how many people have been before us and will come after us, and it was just really a case of, I was up there standing there thinking about all this, and I looked down and there were some ruins, and there was some tiled work in the ruins. And I was literally just mesmerized by this tile work, and actually thinking about the people who would have created it, and how, you know, that wouldn't look anything like we do, you know, today, or just, you know, the complexity of, you know, that particular sort of work would have been, you know, thousands and thousands of years ago. And I very much see the world, and when I look at things, I look at how I can break them down into quilt patterns. It's kind of
Yeah.
just how my mind works. So
Yeah.
I will see something, and to me, I'm already drawing the intersections and where the quilt lines will run, and how could I break that down. And it was just something that I had spied out of the corner of my eye, and that's why it's called Empire, like through just you know, that
I
just
love
that
that.
amazing sort of, yeah, because I had sort of had that you know, that Roman connection to it, and where we had sort of been at the time, and but it was just, you know, so many of those beautiful buildings, and the architecture of that, like it's just mesmerizing when you just stand there and actually look at it and take it in. It's just, it just blows my mind, and architecture is a big inspiration for me, and what I love to sort of look at and break down, and just always sort of, yeah, I'm always looking at, I guess I'm always looking up
Right. Yeah. Looking at
when I'm out and
the
about.
quilty inspiration, it really is everywhere, whether you're
Mhm.
looking down at the floor or up at buildings. And I love that you were inspired by those ruins, and you can definitely see that. Um, in fact, I remember having a conversation with Shelly. I always mention her, my tester and piecer for all of the blocks. So she pieced the blocks and then all of our individual ones as well. And she just really marveled at the interplay with the negative space
Mhm.
that the white creates with the other colored pieces, and how they're kind of slowly turning. And anyway, both of us were just like, oh, this is so smart. It looks so simple, but um, yeah, so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I do, and when I design, there's always that use of sort of negative space, really, to sort of, you know, make the blocks really shine. And again, too, I think it always allows me then to shine a, you know, a particular style of fabric that I want to for my background fabric, you know, because usually I've got something interesting, or, you know,
Yeah.
like yeah, that I want to sort of showcase as well. So I find that that background space and that negative space becomes just as much an important part of how the blocks work.
Yeah, and you can see that at play in your version of the block with that really awesome, vibrant magenta. What was it? Sparkle or
The
something?
the
I can't
starry and
remember.
the speckled.
Speckled. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea that the background becomes kind of the foreground in a way where
Mhm.
you can highlight your fabric choice and the
Yeah.
design elements there. And I when I know that when I was talking with uh my team and we were looking at all of the blocks that the designers had submitted, we just loved that, excuse me, that this provided still a directionality kind of arrow uh method as well, even though it's so completely different than any of the other blocks that we have, that we were still able to kind of orient it in the compass,
Yeah.
you know, inside the compass along with the other blocks. So anyway, so talk to us about the Y seams. There are a couple Y seams in this block, but not difficult. Not
No.
like what we've seen in some of the other blocks. But what are some of the tips you have for folks that are sewing along with us this month?
So with this particular block, I think one of the things is that it's very easy and we naturally kind of want to make, and I've done it, we want to make all the blocks all together, all at the same time, because we're kind of breaking it down to make it as production line, as possible. Where this particular block, the orientation of each of the blocks is actually what creates the design element. So I would really encourage people to kind of work on one block at a time. So it's made up of 4 blocks, and work on one block and then make the next block, because it's very easy. And I had done it myself. You will spend time unpicking because you've actually we're just so
Things in the
used to,
run.
let's just sew all those 4 patches together, the center
Right.
4 patch, let's just sew all those together and we'll do all of them. The problem is if you turn one of those the wrong way, you won't actually get the piece on the right
The right
side.
spot.
So
Yeah, right.
definitely,
Yeah, because like
yeah,
when you look at it, all the 4 patches have the color and the background in the same spot,
yeah.
but then the outside pieces are what are turning, and it can be
Yeah, so
tricky.
you actually have to orientate them in the correct direction. You can't just make the 4 patch and sew all the same color down the same side on all of them. So that's why it's very much make one block and then make the next. It'll save you time unpicking
Yes,
because
yes.
you've accidentally picked it up and turned it the wrong way as you've gone to sew it. So that's definitely one thing. I think with the partial seams as well is that make one first. What it is it's that element of the partial seam comes in because of the placement of the blocks. I could have actually have made that with a lot more pieces. So the blocks could be made, literally as all individual squares.
Mhm.
But I liked that element of the partial seam in so that people could experience something that maybe they hadn't tried before. It
Yep,
does, as you said, it leads into, that comfort, being comfortable with Y seams and partial seams and all of that, so that people aren't necessarily afraid of it, but in a simple enough design that they can tackle it without feeling overwhelmed, because
right,
it's only one in each of the
right.
sections. So
Yeah,
and it really just is, a case of you just have to stop sewing earlier.
right. So just yeah, you just hit stop sooner,
Hmm.
and you get a little bit more used to it, and which I think it helps, like you said, helps us pay attention and become a little bit more precise in our piecing. And then when we go on to do perhaps another pattern and we have those experiences, oh, I've already sewn 4 partial seams.
Yeah,
I'm good,
yeah.
right? Like then we'll feel a little bit more confident to go and tackle hexagons or tackle, you know, anything else. So,
Yeah. I think too, and another sort of big tip with it is to make sure you actually pin. Sometimes we can get away with not pinning. As you're building the blocks out, you want to pin the beginning and the end and make sure everything lines up. So essentially you don't want to have, a small, 1/8 of an inch or, even a quarter. You don't want anything hanging off the block that you cut off. Because that's when things then don't measure up for your next
yeah.
piece. So make sure you're pinning at the beginning and the end of your seam, so that you've got both of those pieces nice and all that
Tidy.
um,
Yeah, because
is
it's
works
not like
between them.
we've built any of this with overage to trim down. Some of the other blocks are kind of built like that, where we have a little bit more room on the curves so that we can trim down if we need to. But like this one and some of the others, it's precise. So
Yeah.
pinning is
Yeah, you don't want
important.
to have you don't want to have those blocks flared or sort of, come up at different sizes as well. So if you're pinning that beginning and the end of each of your seams, you'll have a much more regulated block, and it'll come up to the right size so that everything actually then comes back together, because, that the play with the background fabric and with your negative space comes in with all that coming together. You can, out of that center block, you can see how everything fans out around it. And if those seams don't come together nicely, you don't sort of want a
Yeah,
1/4 inch of negative space in there. It'll break that,
that's
um,
that's
break
true.
that look. So yeah,
Yeah,
but those are my tips. So but
great.
it's not as tricky as what if you read partial seams or Y seams or anything like that, don't be intimidated. Actually give it a go, because it's a very good block to give your hand, like to give that a try out.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. And I have to ask, I ask this every time when I look at the backside, are you a press opener or a press to one side? Or
I
it
am a
depends, girl.
I'm oppressed to whichever makes for the less bulk, and I will change that so throughout a pattern. So all of my patterns come with actual instructions on how to press and which way to press based on what I've found and what I've worked out to be the best way so that everything sits as flat as you possibly can.
Yeah, that's
So
super
I'm not
helpful.
hard and fast on any, it has to be one or the other. I will have open seams and I will have seams pressed in one direction within the same block if that's actually what is going to make the block look better.
Yeah, great. Shelley did such a good job on this one. Things are all nicely pressed towards the dark side. I
Yeah.
love, it's like I love looking on the inside of garments to see how they're
Mhm.
constructed. I like looking on the backside of blocks to see
Yeah.
how things come together. I'm just like, okay, can I look at that really quick? Um, so okay, great. Let's see. Let's talk about the planner.
Hmm.
Now, while we have the planner here, and you've shared some awesome posts on social media about your using the planner. What are you finding that is your go-to kind of jam right now with the planner? Are you knee deep in calendar land? Do you find yourself in the pattern section? Tell us about some of the things that you're enjoying right now.
Well, I mean, my week is planned through the through the planner. All my meetings, I actually use it, I guess from the business end of what I do, like I put down all the things that I need to get done today, all this, so I really like that element of having the space. I like that tactile element. I like to write things down and I love to tick them off. So I guess I use the planner really as a traditional way, like in a traditional way, but it's so good as you turn those pages because you've got the calendar that has the month view. So I really like that. It gives me the
Mm-hmm.
overview of what's coming up for the month. And then you'll have this, the stories and the inspiration from so many different designers. I love that as you know, I love how so many different designers have created, completely different blocks, but aesthetically, and no one knew what anyone else was doing, but everything has
Right.
come together to create such an aesthetically, pleasing and a quilt that works together, even though we're all from different places within the world. But for me, like I love also I have this is my favorite probably. I like I have
Yes.
the little so this
The
is
clip and
actually so this is
bookmarks. Mm-hmm.
yeah, the bookmark. So this tells me sort of where my week's at. I love that it has. I can go straight to what's on this week. Also, I've got that a whiteboard marker, and I use
Mm-hmm.
it to write on. So as I sort of get things ticked off, I love to have them on
Cross
there,
stuff. Yep.
and I can change that. So I guess it's those things. I love the space in the planner as well. So not only can I sort of write what's happening sort of in a day, but I can write notes and all that as well. So yeah,
Tell us which version did you end up picking? Are
I
you
have got I have the
Sunday start date or Monday start date?
I have Monday's the first
Monday.
day of the week.
See, I'm a Sunday girl.
Yeah. And I love because I've got all that space. So
Mm-hmm.
I like it laid
The
out. I
horizontal,
like
about the
yeah.
hours. Yep. Yeah. I definitely have been, I don't know, I kind of feel like I should have given myself my sample version where I put a little bit of each kind throughout the
Mhm.
year to photograph because I find myself wanting different kinds, but I'm normally an hourly, but I will
Mhm.
often hijack my hours and just turn it into a to-do list.
Yeah.
Uh, and because I like seeing my to-do list vertically, but I love that there's that flexibility for people to
Mhm.
pick what they like. So
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I love it how it works that way. It's probably how I've always, I write. So for me, that's just that natural sort of, same way that I see and write. And that's how I use the planner as well. So
yeah. Do you have any favorite? I just have to ask, do you have any favorites from any of the new features or the new pages that we've added this year that you've explored?
I love things like I love all the grids, and I like sort of being able to sort of see how different, there's the grid view and all that as well. So that I can just doodle. So sometimes I'll have something come into my mind, and I'll sort of be able to just sort of quickly sketch that out. I also, funnily enough, I love a little. I've got the pen tab.
Yes, yes. Yeah,
So I look, I guess I'm such a functional person, and things for me aren't, necessarily sometimes in the fancy detail, but in the actual functionality. So for me, being able to have, the pen tab, and so whilst it may not be, the most exciting thing necessarily, for me, I'm all about function, and it means that I've got my pen, and that's how I, get
it
everything
doesn't
written,
go
recorded,
anywhere
and it's
else.
there. No, that's it.
Yep.
I know I'm ready to go.
Exactly. Exactly. Awesome. Yeah, I'm loving to hear how each of our um designers are using, project planning pages. Some people are just choosing just to use the scratch paper or the graph paper to work those things out. Um, the reference section. I'm such a I'm a proud mama of this
Yeah.
project. And I can't wait to share more about next year's planner as it gets farther along, and to see how people are using it.
Hmm.
So thank you for sharing. Let's see. I would like to kind of wrap up a little bit our discussion today. And with what are some of the advice that you would have for beginner quilters? Um, you've shared a lot of awesome tips and kind of how you got started, but as one who seems like you teach a lot for people that are kind of trying this out for the first time or don't have it, they're not at expert level yet. What are some advice that you would share with them as they're starting this journey in quilting?
I think for me, it's always a case of sort of trying to sort of have people understand that it's just getting started, and you will, spend some time seam ripping fabric, and a lot of, when we get started, everything doesn't, it's not going to line up, absolutely perfectly, and it's not going to, so just allowing yourself that grace, and I think that ability to go, well, I'm actually learning, and I'm actually practicing, and it may not be that this is going to, be, an heirloom that's going to be, shown in a museum or anything, but actually giving yourself that ability to go, this is, a technique that maybe I want to learn, and just opening it up to, it's not going to come together exactly maybe how you think, but through practicing and through, taking on that advice on, what are some of the tips, and what are some of the ways that you can do it better, will actually end up in sort of being that better result. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I think just giving yourself that leeway, as you're learning and as you're practicing, to not be as critical and as harsh on yourself. And uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean I definitely know from kind of my own journey, like as much as we can see like such lovely work from other people, it's really hard to not expect that from ourselves immediately because we're like, well, you see it, we know it's possible. But having just that understanding that this is a journey, this is a long-term game, right? Like we're not in it just to make one perfect quilt and be done. Like that is
Yeah.
not the point, is to make quilts. The point is to express our creativity, right?
Hmm.
Doing something that we love. Um, and I love that advice to just give yourself that grace. So
Hmm.
awesome. Now, if people are wanting to take the next step, tell us a little bit about your new block on the month, which I love to play because I was definitely a New Kids on the Block fan growing up. Tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about your beginner's course that you have rolling out soon.
Yeah, so launching in early September, I've got my beginners online quilt course, which is called New Quilt on the Block. So yeah, absolutely a fan from the 90s. But this is really about getting beginners into quilting without that overwhelm, and without sort of having there be anything left for you to guess. So it's a step-by-step online course taking you right through. getting your machine set up and actually knowing what you need for quilting, because it's not just a case of, you know, grabbing and taking a machine and getting sewing. You do need a couple of little elements to get started in quilting that are different from dressmaking or any other sort of style of textile sewing. So, and taking people through how to cut safely, and actually then how you're going to construct things, and how we achieve things like a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and what that actually first of all even means. So
Yeah.
the beginners online quilt course is designed to take all that element of, you know, what are all these terms, what's all the maths, what do, you know, what's inches and all these things, and really sort of showcase and take people through step by step making their first quilt. So which has been a really exciting journey. I've really loved welcoming students into the course, and seeing their stories. You know, quite often not only is it a case of someone coming along and taking the online course, but actually then, you know, them gifting the quilt, or them, you know, actually saying that they've made it, you know, as their first quilt, and it's going to be for, you know, a grandchild, or it's going to be for their daughter, or that connection as well. So I really love that people come into quilting sort of wanting to wrap up someone that they love in a quilt. And this course will take people through, you know, how to get started, and how to make your quilt right through to binding, and how you're going to look after it as well. So all those steps, it's explained. There's no you don't have to sort of read between the lines, because it's actually all there. I tell you which way to press and why we do that. So, and everything's there's step-by-step videos, and the workbook as well. So people like, you know, visual, some people like, you know, the written
Yeah.
element. So it's all there within the course. But yeah, very excited to be opening up the doors again in September.
Great. Yeah, because you had launched your first semester, I guess, or first batch of it
Yeah.
in January, and now you're doing your second run. That's so exciting. I'm so excited to see people sign up and
Yeah.
continue on with that.
But so, you know, people share their work within the Facebook community, and you know, share their pictures and all that sort of thing as well. And people see other people's progress, and that's the other thing, you know, it really. And then I've seen what students go on to, and you know, they're more confident then to take on other projects. And so that's the exciting thing, sort of being at the start of people's journeys, and actually sort of showing and them how they can achieve you know, beautiful quilts themselves.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Well, I'm so excited for you for that and everything that you are working on. You are staying busy. Very much looking forward to QuiltCon, to being able to meet you. And
So good
a
to,
lot of
yeah.
our other designers are planning to come too. So we might have to do a little planner QP meetup with people who use the planner maybe. So more on that, I guess. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Lindsay, for having me. I hope everyone's enjoying making their blocks in the quilt, and
I
it'll
hope
be so
so
good to
too.
see everyone's empire blocks come together.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Lindsay. Bye.
Bye.